Okay. Okay. So we're going to talk about the Assessment 3, which is take-home final exam. It's really not an exam. It's a project, and it's a paper that you're going to write. It's really a total paper, and when I go through the rubric, you'll see that we have to make things a little bit more reasonable, because if you follow specifically the letter of the law of what's written in the rubric, this would be a good 18-month project. You have 3 weeks. So I know from teaching this course last year where we make modifications so that you fulfill the intent, but you're still able to do this within the 3-week time frame that we have. So after Sunday, we have 2 weeks and 4 days left in this term, and this is due on the last day of the term, which is a Thursday, I believe, according to the official calendar. This should be your focus. I would encourage you that if you can get the second paper wrapped up Saturday, do that, and then the last 3 weeks you're working just on this particular paper. Okay. So what the assignment is, it's an independent project that you're going to do, and earlier in the term we had it posted in the syllabus and the course guide that you'd have 3 weeks, and I would make this available to you 3 weeks ahead of time, and that's so that people didn't start looking at it earlier in the term and start working on it. Really, we want you to just focus on it now. There's some material in the last unit that may help you, but you can do this assignment without waiting until that week happens. Excuse me. So what you're going to do is you're going to devise a plan to adopt a digital literacy tool within your organization or department. And so it should be a tool, and the word tool is used pretty loosely, and it's going to be something that there's a need for. When you see the rubric, it will make a little bit more sense as to how broad this digital literacy tool has to be. Okay, and we're going to now go over what has to be in your plan. What's in the plan and what's in the rubric don't exactly align. So there are pieces in the plan that you go, I don't see that in the rubric. It's really in the last part of the rubric. So you need to make sure that you do both of these together. Look at what's supposed to be in the plan, the context, and then look at what's in the rubric. So as far as what's supposed to be in your plan first has a purpose. What's the reason that you're doing this? Why are you adopting this particular digital literacy tool? And the context is a description of the setting and the stakeholders, both internally and externally. As we know that if you're working in a school environment, it's just not about the people inside the school. There are external stakeholders as well, so there needs to be a description on how all of that fits in. A needs assessment, and this is doing a digital survey or poll tool and designing an instrument that you would use to evaluate the need or attitudes. Basically, you're to design a tool and assume that you've administered this tool and this validates your need for whatever digital literacy tool you're going to put into place. We don't want you to go out there and actually do that. That's why I said this could take up to 18 months to do. But you're going to develop a survey, and it's a needs assessment. So rather than saying, I believe we should implement A, B, and C, you now have some justification for implementing A, B, and C. So that's what the needs assessment does. It says, here's our constituents, our stakeholders say this is a need, or there's a void, and here's how we're going to fill that particular need. The next part is a policy assessment. That is, policy changes required or a new policy. Sometimes digital literacy tool replaces something that already exists, then that would be a policy change. Or it's a new policy because you've implemented something that people go, oh, this is going to really help out. But now you need some policy to make sure that it's administered correctly. The change management component is you need to describe how this digital technology is going to be used and the communication for the change. So how are you going to communicate to who what's happening? And communication when you're implementing a digital technology is critical. Different stakeholders need to be aware of what's going on. You don't want to spring it on them. So let me give you an example. The college that I recently worked at, we were updating our whole ERP system, the enterprise management system, the financial aid component, the way students register. There were talks way ahead of time and a lot of communication as this 3-year process went along, letting different groups know where they were in the process. Honestly, all groups don't get the change at once. And in order for that to happen, there were some websites that were created where they housed the timeline so everybody was on the same page. So this is the change management. And so describe how the digital technologies will be used for communication about the change process. So how are you going to let people know what's going on in this process? The other components that we have are the project management plan. And project management plan is a tool. Typically the project management plan tool is some kind of management plan. Sometimes people do a spreadsheet, but there are programs that actually can help you manage all of the moving parts of a project. And there are a lot of moving parts. This typically would include timeline and phases of the project, and it shows who's responsible for what, when in the project. You should also have a workshop plan. If you're going to implement a new digital technology, you need to get people on the right page. You can't just put a new digital technology in place and expect that people will know how it works. What you need to do is take the time to develop a plan to train the people to do this appropriately. So the plan, and again, we're not talking about a full workshop, but you should have, here's what we would include in the presentations, here's some activities, some pre and post activities, so that we get an idea that you've taken into account that training for implementing a new digital technology is important. So people just one day don't show up and go, oh, we're doing something different, well, I don't know how to do that. And then last but not least, a tool management, and this is a plan for managing and sustaining the use of the tool. So this is, now that you've implemented it, how do you maintain this? And so instead of it saying tool management, I prefer to think of this as maintenance. How do you ensure that it continues? Who's going to be responsible for making sure that things get updated? If things are broken, what happens? And so this is the plan for really making sure it sustains itself, it moves forward. So that's what your plan needs to include in there. When it comes to the rubric, you're going to see the rubric has the specifics that what we're looking for. So remember that while your plan needs to contain these particular pieces, it's really the rubric that you will be marked on. Now here are some really important points that I want to make. This should be 15 pages. That doesn't include appendices, the reference page, or the title page. You can put a lot of things in appendices. So if you need more than 15 pages, all of your plans can actually go in as an appendix, and then you just briefly talk about them. Your survey tool, certainly that would be an appendix. So you can put a lot in the appendices, but you still have to have meat. 15 pages is a lot, then this is a maximum of 15 pages. No abstract, don't want an abstract doesn't make sense. You should have a title page in APA format. And then if you want to have a table of contents, you can. The table of contents also would not count towards the 15 pages. The 15 pages is your content. Okay? And of course you would want to do this, you have to do this in APA style. You have to submit this to two boxes. One is the assignment drop box, and one is the Turnitin drop box. They're located right next to each other in the top part of the course. It has to be submitted to both places. Any paper that has an over 20% similarity, hold on one second. Sorry about that. My dog is going a little crazy because he sees another dog outside. Okay, so any paper that has a similarity index that's over 20%, I have to forward on to the college for them to examine. We really want to make sure that you are not working on other people's words. Hold on one second. Let me take care of him. Okay, again, my apologies. So, and of course, as soon as I say that, he barks again. So all papers where it's over 20% have to be, I have to forward those to my program coordinator here. Any paper that has material that's not properly quoted, I need to turn over as well. So if you're going to take something from somebody else, make sure you have the quote marks around it. This paper is worth 40% of your course grade, which means any violations of the academic honesty policy of the college will result, if found that it does violate the policy. This is a level 2 policy, a level 2 offense because of how much this assignment is worth, is automatic failure of the course. So please, 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 please don't put me in the situation where I have to turn a paper over. You will not be able to see the similarity reports when you submit them. And I've excluded the bibliography. I've excluded anything that you have in quotes. Please note that at the bottom, you should not have more than 2% of your total paper in quotes. We don't want to see that you can find things. We want to see that you can actually tell us what they mean. So the emphasis is on your words. Somebody else's technology plan isn't your technology plan. Or sorry, a digital tool plan. It's yours. So make it yours. Make sure that this is in your words. So again, remember, anything over 20% similarity, that excludes the bibliography, that excludes the 2% in quotes, and everything that you have that's quoted, you need to make sure that you have quote marks around. Okay? And so if you have a section that's fine, that's a quote, again, my preference is not to have any quotes at all, but if you find one that is absolutely positively you have to have, okay. Typically, when in a digital technology implementation plan, people don't quote people. This isn't a research paper per se. There would be research in there, but you wouldn't be having people say this is a wonderful plan. That's not what it's about. It's you making a case for this and justifying it. So I hope that makes sense. So let me take a pause here for a second and see, does anybody have any questions so far? You can give me a check mark of yes or no, or type no. Wendy, no. Yes, sir. You can grab the microphone. Or if that was meant to be a no, that's fine as well. Oh, okay, good. So no, no, no. Okay, good. Now let's go look at the rubric. Okay, so the rubric, pretty simple rubric. First, statement of purpose. Why are you doing this? And that's really all this is. It's kind of an introduction. It says, you give a little synthesis, get to the point very quickly. We believe we need of X, Y, and Z because, boom, and in this plan I'm going to talk about X, Y, and Z. And that's really the extent of the statement of purpose. That's worth 5 marks. The next part is the stakeholders. Remember I mentioned the stakeholders before, internal and external, and this is just so that you've taken into account who this is going to impact. So you describe who all the stakeholders are, and their roles in the process. Some of them will be external stakeholders. They will be people that are impacted. They may not have a particular role in the process, but they're going to be the targets of whatever your digital tool does. So for example, it could be students, it could be parents. They may not have a specific role in the process, but they are the recipients of the end product. So they would be stakeholders as well. Stakeholders are anybody that's impacted. And for these 10 marks, you want to make sure that you've laid that out really clear, who they are, what's their role, and sometimes the role is not an active participant, but it's who the digital tool is going to impact itself. The next part is the policy assessment. This is a description of the policy. Again, remember, you have to have a policy for this. How's this going to be used? Why is it being used? So appropriate use would be part of the policy assessment. How easy it is to use. What do you need, and what comes in and what comes out. And support this with a little evidence. So this is really how you're going to use this thing and what the rules about the use. Think of this as standard operating procedure. How are people going to use this digital tool? What's the right ways that they're going to use it? What's the inappropriate ways? So talk about the appropriate ways, and I think that's probably about it. The policy assessment is really the rules for how this digital technology or digital tool is going to be used. The next one is the plan for the digital technology for communication. This is your communication plan. How are you going to push this out so that all of the stakeholders know what's going on? This should be based upon the goals and purpose of the technology. So whatever your goals are, when you have benchmarks, you need to communicate those. So many of these components really rely upon other pieces. So when you have a communication plan, this is also going to be your workflow plan. So when you devise your workflow plan, you can then determine here's where we're going to need to communicate and what we're going to need to communicate with, and with what groups we're going to need to communicate that information. Next is that project management tool, and this is the timeline. Make sure that it's realistic, it's achievable, and it's elaborated so that we know what's going on. Again, this is going to align with the communication plan, so you know when things are happening and implementation. Again, for a lot of tools that people implement, it's not as though they just turn them on. They phase them in. There may be a trial that happens, and that's usually the case, that there's going to be at least a little test group that's going to use it, and they're going to have feedback, and then the feedback comes back to the implementation team to tweak things. Let's see, how time do we use? Oh, how much time? Yeah, I'm not sure I'm following there. How much time do we use? Let's see. Oh, 1 year. Yeah, my suggestion would be that this is a 1-year plan. A 1 year for full implementation. You know, you can make it a little bit shorter than that, and if you feel that you need to go a little bit beyond that, that's fine as well. But it shouldn't be something that's going to take place in 30 days. This should be a major tool that's going to transform or really alter the way your division, department, or organization does what it does. It should be a tool that's going to have a major impact. So yeah, a year is usually what we have told people in the past is count on, and that gives you time to slowly move things into place. Again, people don't like change, so you have to do it slow and you have to get their buy-in, and a year is very effective there. Remember, I mentioned that there needs to be a workshop plan, the training part, and so the rubric here says effectively use a technology survey or poll to substantiate or support the activities. This is part of that workshop plan that you have. So when you're doing the workshop, how are you going to know if it's effective as well? Just saying we're going to go in and we're going to train people and here's what our training plan is, that's nice, but how do you know it works? So as part of that support for the workshop plan, you need to have some use of technology, typically a survey, that will, and using an electronic survey for the effectiveness. And when do you measure the effectiveness? what I know about doing training, and I'm a faculty development manager at a university, what we like to do is we do the training right after the event. We do a survey right after the event, but the survey right after the event is more or less how people liked the actual activity, not what they learned. And so you do that because it's necessary so you can get feedback on what people are confused about immediately. But then you do an additional survey a couple of months later so that you can really find out what people learned, what they're using, what they're not using, and where they're still having some difficulties, so that when you do the second round of training or the second group of training, you can then build that in and remind people that what we know is that when you leave here, here's where you're going to have some difficulties. And so we're going to tell you that now, and then you can plan on the second phase if there needs to be a second phase. So use technology in developing your workshop plan. The workshop activities is what I already talked about. These two probably should be flip-flopped around. The workshop plan is the workshop activities, and these should support the goal of the technology plan. So whatever you're implementing, this is to help people use that or understand its use. Then we have the management plan, and this is similar to the timeline. But this is who does what. And it really focuses on who's going to manage all of the pieces of it. Remember, in here, for part of management is always going to have to be money. This should be guided by the goals and purpose of the technology plan. So that's that early part to say, here's the purpose of this and here are the goals. And so from that, here's who's going to do it, and the budget falls under management. You have to make sure that you stay on budget. Then the last part is the overall report, and this is the APA, the free of grammar errors, and anything else that wasn't included from that first part. So if we look at the first part, we talked about what you have to include: the purpose, the context, the needs assessment, policy assessment, change management. Change management is not part of the rubric. It would be worked into the management plan. So think of it as that part, the change management, and the project management, the workshop plan, and then the tool management. A plan for managing and sustaining the use of the tool, this is not included. So this little part here is not included anywhere. So what that would mean is that when that gets assessed, it gets assessed in the overall report. Do we have to select a project management tool? Yeah, you should select a project management tool. You don't have to use it, but you're going to tell me, here's the project management tool that I'm going to use, and that's just to keep you on track. Okay. Last but not least, there's only one more slide, which is the last one here, which is it's due on April 13th. And now it's your opportunity to ask me any questions. It is very manageable. Break it down into pieces for yourself. This is, however, something that is not I'm going to sit down on Saturday night and I'm going to knock this out. You can do different pieces at different times, but it's going to be a multi-sitting project. Okay, so I see we had 2 people join us when we're about finished, which is okay. I did record this so that you can listen to it. The recording will probably be available a little bit later tonight, and I can quickly run through a couple of pieces here just to make sure that we're all on the same page here. You have until April 13th to do this. What you're doing is you're devising a plan. You're devising a plan. Alistair, I'll make sure I go over the needs assessment part. And that's on the front end. So you're devising a plan to adopt a digital literacy tool for your organization, department, or your unit. So what digital literacy tool, a digital tool, are you going to implement that's going to help transform your department organization? The different parts of this, you need to have purpose, describe the context. The needs assessment is, why are you doing this? And so, Alistair, what this part is about is that this is the justification for why it happened. So, 4 people say, you know what? We need to have a new enterprise management system because the one we have is costing us too much money, yada, yada, yada. Now, a typical needs assessment can be done by asking people their thoughts. When I mentioned the college that I used to work at, the needs assessment was pretty simple. Our college had to pay back the federal government $4.3 million and then $2.1 million because the enterprise management system we had in place wasn't allowing us to stop people from getting financial aid, and they needed to. When you pay back $6 million to the federal government in 2 years, that's a real need. I mean, it's going to save money. So you can do a needs assessment either by asking people for their opinions, showing that this is going to save money, or showing that it's going to have a positive outcome. So if you're implementing a tool that's going to cut down on retention so that you increase retention, that's going to save students there, which is good. Oh, I'm sorry that you signed into the wrong BBC. So does that, Alistair, does that help out with the needs assessment? You can do a survey, a poll tool, which you should do, but I would also justify it with some additional information that you have, inside information, not information that I'd be able to verify. So, for example, at the college I used to work at, I mean, yeah, we have the newspaper articles that say FSCJ had to pay back $4.3 million and $2.1 million, but the money in and of itself is a major reason why there was a need to move to a new system very quickly. We couldn't fix the error that we had unless we went to a new system. So that was part of the needs assessment. They also did some surveys of people as well to say, yes, I'm having difficulty doing my job because the system that we have in place is archaic. And the system was archaic. It was 40 years old. And when it comes to technology, a system that's 40 years old is not a very good system. So in addition to the needs assessment, you need a policy assessment. The policy assessment is policies for how to use and how this is going to work in your institution. Who's going to be responsible for what? The change management is how are you going to bring about the change, and part of this is a communication plan. And so how are you going to communicate to all of the stakeholders, which is under Part B, stakeholders, very important. How are we going to communicate to all of those people what's going on? The project management plan, which is how you decide who's doing what and what the deadlines are for certain things. That's where you want to use a tool for that. A workshop plan, 2 parts to the workshop plan. One is what you're actually going to do in the workshop, and then the other one is the evaluation of the workshop so that you can determine that it's effective. And then the tool management is a plan for managing and sustaining the use of the tool, which is after it's up and running, how do you maintain it? What has to be done? And in a lot of cases, the big part of the tool management here is making sure that resources are allocated to keep the digital tool current. We forget about that. We put the tool in and then we don't fund it after that, and that's really problematic. So that's the overview of it. Again, let me make these points very clear. Maximum of 15 pages. That excludes title page, references, No abstract is required. You can put a lot of things in the appendix. You have to submit this to both the assignment Dropbox and the Turnitin Dropbox. They're located right next to each other. Any paper that has over 20% similarity, meaning it's not your work, I have to turn that over to the program director. Any paper where there's material that's not properly quoted, that has to be turned over. Because this project is worth 40% of your grade, these are automatically elevated to a level 2 violation. Please note that I don't want to see more than 2% of your total paper in quotes. I would be happy if nothing in your paper was quoted. Again, it doesn't mean you don't have references. When you borrow the ideas of people, you reference them. But I don't want to really see the words of others. I want to see your words. Okay, the actual rubric itself, which is posted in the course. There's a statement of purpose, which is 5 marks. The stakeholder description, worth 10 marks. The policy assessment, which is how you're going to use this thing, that's worth 15 marks. The plan for the communication is worth 15 marks. The project management tool, which is the tool that you're going to use to keep everybody on track and keep track of the moving parts. The workshop, the support for the workshop plan, this is the justification for did it work, and the workshop plan itself, and then the management plan, which is the change management. The plan, how you're going to accomplish that, and last but not least, it's the overall and anything else that wasn't included. So I went over this twice for those of you that joined us late because you may have been in the other room. I apologize for that. Specific questions? If not, for those of you that already heard this twice, if you need to leave, that's fine. I will be here to answer particular questions. Again, don't wait till the last minute to do this. This would be one of these things that I would encourage you to start working on next Monday. I would encourage you to actually start working on it now with the thinking of what the tool, the digital tool is that you want to implement. And think about your organization, your department, and the course content from this course and from last course with how can technology help your department be better? You know, what can you do? What technology can be used? It doesn't have to be something that's going to happen, but it's something that you should take the approach. You know, if I was in charge, here's what I would do. I think we would really benefit from having a sustained Facebook site, and then lay out why you would need to have a Facebook site, what it would do. I believe we could really benefit by redesigning our entire web page. I believe we could be much better at what we do if we started to use Edmodo. I believe we could do a much better. So ask yourself that question, and that's how you can approach what tool it is that you want to use. Okay? So questions, specific questions for me. I will try to hold another session next week. Well, that's why I sent the link. I understand that several of you were in the other one. I had the link and I had it on for this particular week. You know, I built a separate session there, and that's, you know, I did record this, so you can listen to it. Matter of fact, I've gone over it twice, so when you listen to it, you'll hear me go through it the first time slowly, and then the second time a little bit faster. Please make sure that you go into the course and look at where the assignment's at so that you can get the words. They're all in here as well, but that way you can download a copy of it. And if you have any questions about it, let me know. I can send you this PowerPoint, but you're going to be really disappointed, Basil, when you look and see that I actually copied and pasted from the rubric. I copied and pasted from the assignment. There is nothing in here that's original. All of this. The only thing that's original in here is this slide. This is not on the assessment plan. But I wanted to clarify this because these are the questions that you asked. But I will make sure that I upload this next to the items that are in the course. That way you can have it there. Other questions that you might have? That's going to be a file. Well, I will be here for, Collaborate has encountered a problem. Can you all still hear me? I just got a message that Collaborate experienced a problem. Okay, good. Just want to make sure that we didn't get lost. Okay, so again, questions that you might have. I, in the meantime, am now working on posting the PowerPoint into the class itself. So this is going to be File, and we will call it Assignment 3 PDF. And then I'll upload it. So the item should be in the class in just a few minutes. It's actually in the class. Let me go now put it where it needs to be. Doesn't want to move fast. Okay, come on. So if you are in the course, you will see that this is component B. It's assignment 3, the take-home final exam. That the first item there is the Dropbox. The second item that has the Turnitin logo on it, it looks like a piece of paper with an arrow, a circular arrow on it. It says final project, and it says you must submit your final project to both the assignment Dropbox and this Turnitin Dropbox. Remember, we want to see original work with a minimum of quotes. The preference is no quotes at all. Remember, you must cite all references used. Then I have directions for the final project, which is the first part of what it was in this PDF or in the PowerPoint that I presented. And then the rubric for the final project, I actually took the individual pieces and put them in the PowerPoint here, but it's there. And then the PowerPoint itself is now the last item under component B in the course, and it says Assignment 3 PDF. So you have all the resources. So, anything else for me tonight?